Hey guys! Today we'll be covering a 2018 drama film called Little Forest. The movie opens up with the young girl, Hae-won, riding her bicycle through the woods. In the background, Hae-won states that her beautiful village is known for apples and rice. She also mentions that she recently returned to the village, and as it is far from the town, she has to travel for more than an hour to buy necessary supplies. The scene then flashes back to 3 months, when Hae-won returns home in winter and starts cleaning up around the place. After not finding anything special to prepare for dinner, she steps out of the house and picks up ingredients for soup. The next day, after kneading some dough for breakfast, Hae-won goes outside and starts clearing the snow in her front yard. After that, Hae-won has breakfast and starts chopping the firewood. Just then, she realizes that she has run out of groceries and now needs to head to town to buy them. As she considers all this, her childhood friend Yoon-suk visits her and gives her a warm hug. Later, the two friends can be seen sitting inside the house and talking about Hae-won's studies. When Yoon-suk asks Hae-won about her boyfriend, Hae-won's voice in the background states that Yoon-suk is her friend who always asks the hard-hitting questions. She also mentions that Yoon-suk works at a bank in the village and has a dream to settle in Seoul. Meanwhile, Yoon-suk asked Hae-won if she left the city after her boyfriend passed the entrance exam, and she failed. Hae-won doesn't reply, and Yoon-suk concludes that she is right. During their conversation, Yoon-suk mentions their other childhood friend, Taeha. Hae-won then narrates about Taeha, who completed his graduation from a nearby university and left his well-paying job to return to the village, where he currently helps his father in farming. Following this, Hae-won reveals details about herself, mentioning that she used to study for a teacher certification program and also worked a part-time job while in Seoul. She then asserts that the stale instant food she used to eat in Seoul made her sick, and it is the main reason she returned to her childhood village. Back in the present, Hae-won tries to sleep at night, but can't do so because of the continuous wild animal sounds disturbing her. The next morning, Hae-won wakes up to find her aunt Bok-soon approaching her. Her aunt asks her about what she is doing there and compares Hae-won to her mother, who never informs anyone about her return. She then invites Hae-won to her home to have breakfast. At first, Hae-won refuses to go, mentioning that she will return to Seoul in a few days. But after Bok-soon insists, she follows her to her house and enjoys some delicious breakfast. Following this, Hae-won heads home carrying some food that her aunt gave her. When she reaches home, she is surprised to see Taeha waiting for her in the front yard, holding a cute white puppy. Taeha hands her the puppy and simply walks away, mentioning that the puppy's name is 5-0. The scene then flashes back in time, when Hae-won returns home from school and fails to find her mother. She waits for her until night, until Bok-soon approaches and comforts her. Bok-soon mentions that before leaving, Hae-won's mother visited her and requested her to take care of Hae-won. Later that night, Hae-won finds a letter from her mother, but throws it away in anger without reading it. In the background, Hae-won narrates that her father died when she was a child, and after that, she has been staying with her mother. She also mentions that now that her mother is gone, she wants to prove that she doesn't need her anymore and can handle life on her own. Back in the present, Hae-won is preparing a multicolored rice cake for Taeha and Yoon-suk. It is revealed that Yoon-suk has a crush on Taeha, but she is too afraid to reveal it. Soon, the rice cake is ready, and the three friends sit down to enjoy the dish. Taeha likes the dish and says that it is similar to what Hae-won's mother used to make them. After a while, Yoon-suk and Taeha bid their goodbyes and depart. On their way back home, Yoon-suk and Hae-won talk about Hae-won and her mother's relationship, where Yoon-suk mentions that Hae-won doesn't like being compared to her mother. The following day, Hae-won gets a call from her boyfriend but cuts it short, lying to him that the network is poor in the village. Later, she visits Taeha's tomato farm and enjoys some fresh tomatoes. The two then talk about their childhood and how they used to enjoy their time playing around the village. In the next scene, Hae-won is at her home chopping firewood. After she is done, she starts preparing macchioli, a kind of alcohol made from rice. She then remembers her mother making her taste macchioli for the first time. She didn't like the taste then, but she loves it now. Later at night, the macchioli is ready and Hae-won can be seen enjoying it with Taeha. The two start bantering over a door, and seeing them enjoy their time, Yoon-suk, who has just arrived, gets jealous and prepares to leave. Luckily, Hae-won notices her and invites her to join them. Soon, everyone gets drunk, and Taeha starts murmuring while in a drunken state. After some time, Taeha and Yoon-suk return home, while Hae-won stares at the sky and deliberates about her life. She asks herself if she will ever get the answers to her questions. The scene then shifts to springtime, where Hae-won is planting potatoes in her field and stating that it takes a long time to grow them. Later, she visits the market and buys some vegetable plants. Back at her house, she and Yoon-suk are planting the plants, and Taeha is keeping an eye on them. Taeha doesn't like the way Yoon-suk is planting and intervenes to teach her the proper way of doing it. In the following scene, Hae-won prepares some noodles for herself and remembers her friends from Seoul, who hate the village due to the large amount of insects there. Hae-won, however, having grown up in the village, is not afraid of insects and accepts them as part of her surroundings. She seems to enjoy cooking, and whenever she cooks, she remembers her mother and tries to compete with her. After a while, as Haewon is enjoying her food, a mailman approaches her house to deliver a letter. Haewon asks the mailman to return the letter to the sender, but he refuses to do so, mentioning that the sender's address is not included on the letter. Later, Haewon and Taeha can be seen in the field preparing to plant the paddy. Here, Haewon reveals that the one sending the letters is her mother. The scene then fasts forward to summer, and Haewon is at a nearby bank to withdraw money. While waiting for her turn, Haewon stands in front of the cooler and enjoys some cool air. Meanwhile, Yeon-suk brings cold coffee for the other people waiting, but not for Haewon. Haewon then mentions that Yeon-suk is angry at her as she didn't listen to her work problems some days before. Instead, she suggested that Yeon-suk quit her job if she is facing problems there. In the following scene, Haewon and Taeha are working in a cornfield, where Taeha reminds Haewon how she used to remain idle in front of bullies and never react to them, causing them to back off. In the meantime, Haewon remembers herself complaining about being bullied to her mother, but to her surprise, her mother suggests she remain silent and give them no chance to make fun of her. Hearing this, Haewon becomes angry with her mom for a while, but reconciles after she prepares a tasty dish for her. Back in the present, Haewon prepares the same dish for Yeon-suk and delivers it to her workplace. Yeon-suk likes the dish and immediately reconciles with Haewon. Later, Haewon is inside her kitchen preparing food for herself. Suddenly, she looks outside and the scene flashes back in time where Haewon's mother and Haewon are eating tomatoes and talking about her father. Haewon's mother mentions that she married her father, going against her family, and though he died at an early age, she never felt like dating another guy. Hearing this, Haewon understands that she still misses her father. At night, Haewon and Taeha are collecting some snails in a nearby lake. Later, the duo sit on the riverside rocks and start enjoying their dinner while talking about their love lives. During their conversation, Haewon makes it clear that she hasn't broken up with her boyfriend. On the other hand, Taeha mentions that he broke up with his girlfriend after she refused to come to the village with him. Soon, Yeon-suk also arrives carrying a big bottle of wine and enjoys the night with her friends. After some time, Haewon calls her boyfriend and breaks up with him. In the background, she mentions that she was so drunk at the moment that she doesn't remember anything about what she said to her boyfriend. In the next scene, Haewon meets Yeon-suk outside the bank, where Yeon-suk tells Haewon to contact her whenever she is in need of money. Following this, she makes a plan to have lunch in town and decides to call Taeha. However, Haewon informs Yeon-suk that Taeha is busy and it would be best to not disturb him. Haewon then asks her if she told Taeha that she likes him. In reply, Yeon-suk says no, and before leaving, Haewon suggests she confess it to him before it's too late. The next day, as Yeon-suk and Haewon are enjoying some snacks in a nearby shop, Yeon-suk suddenly challenges Haewon to win over Taeha's heart. Unfortunately, while they are discussing the bet, Taeha walks past them along with his ex-girlfriend. Seeing this, Yeon-suk gets heartbroken and the two go straight to Haewon's home, where they start discussing the situation. Later, Haewon makes Yeon-suk prepare a dish in which the latter puts a lot of chilies, despite Haewon's refusal. Later, when they eat the dish, both of them start crying. In the meantime, Taeha also arrives there and immediately tastes the dish. Yeon-suk cannot stop herself and asks him about his ex-girlfriend visiting him. Taeha replies that his ex visited him accidentally and he sent her away by mentioning that he now likes someone else. The next day, Haewon visits a nearby forest and collects some chestnuts to make one of her favorite dishes. Later, she also visits Taeha's apple orchard, and when he asks her to help him, she tells him that she is busy and has a very tight schedule. Hearing this, Taeha tells her that keeping herself busy will not solve her problems. As soon as Taeha says this, Haewon feels embarrassed and walks away. At night, a huge rainfall occurs followed by a storm, destroying all the crops around the village. In the morning, Haewon meets with her aunt and helps her regroup the paddies destroyed by the storm. Following this, Haewon visits Taeha's orchard and tries to help him with his work. However, seeing her miserable condition after working in the paddy field, Taeha asks her to return home and rest. Before she leaves, Taeha also tells her to take as many apples as she wants to make apple jam. In the next scene, Haewon peels the apples and leaves them to dry in the sun. Right then, she remembers her mother massaging the dried apples and telling her that she is doing so to make the apples last long. One day, when Haewon is leaving home for school, her mother tells her to have food, but she does not obey and walks away. After that, Haewon's mother writes a letter to Haewon telling her that she is leaving home to pursue her dreams that she halted due to an early marriage. Now that Haewon is grown up, has spent enough time in the village, and is habitual to all the basic activities necessary for survival, she decides to go to the outside world and pursue her dreams. The scene then shifts back to the present where Haewon is reading the letters and smiling. She now understands why her mother brought her up in the village and why she left. In the next scene, Haewon decides to face her life problems and live a happy life. She decides to go to Seoul, and before leaving, she writes a letter to her mother and pastes it on the wall. She also leaves a small letter at the entrance and walks away. Later, Taeha visits Haewon's house and finds a letter, which asks him to take care of her dog and chicken. Shortly after, Haewon can be seen working in a restaurant in Seoul, fulfilling her customers' demands. After spending some time there, she again returns home and prepares food for herself. Soon, Taeha arrives there with her dog and goes away without saying a word. In the last scene of the movie, Haewon rides her bicycle around the village. After some time, when she returns home, she finds the entrance door wide open. Seeing this, she gets excited, thinking that her mother has finally returned. The movie ends as she excitedly approaches the house with a wide smile on her face.